Louis Satchmo Armstrong was a famous American jazz musician from the 1920s to the 1960s. His amazing career came with his compromises, as he often played up the Uncle Tom stereotypes in order to be accepted by white and mainstream society. Many African Americans called him a sellout because he was silent about the conflicts of segregation and his own people's racial struggles. What they failed to recognize is the influence he had on the civil rights movement and his role in breaking racial barriers. Louis Armstrong brought people of different races to appreciate the African American creativity, regardless of the color of his skin. Louis Armstrong was born on August 4th, 1901 in New Orleans, Louisiana. He was the first child of Mary Albert and William Armstrong. His father left his mother and Louis shortly after he was born. Their lives weren't the greatest because they lived in the most impoverished and dangerous part of New Orleans called the battlefield. At age 7, he worked for a Russian Jewish immigrant family, the Karnofskys, collecting junk and delivering coal in Storyville. The Karnofskys showed Armstrong kindness by always making sure he ate, having him sing along with them, and would later give him a $5 advance to help him buy his first cornet. Armstrong never forgot how kindly he was treated. He said, "They could see that I had music in my soul. They really wanted me to be something in life, and music was it." When Armstrong was 11 years old, he got arrested for firing his stepfather's gun on New Year's Eve. He was then sent to the Colored Waifs Home, a reform school where he received his first formal music lessons on the cornet. He joined the marching band and quickly became the leader of the band. When he heard the potential in Armstrong, Joe King Oliver, the top cornet player in New Orleans, became his mentor and took Armstrong under his wing. After King Oliver left New Orleans and moved to Chicago in 1918, Armstrong replaced him in Kid Ory's band, which was the most popular band in New Orleans at the time. He had to wait until 1922 to get a telegram from King Oliver inviting him to be the second cornet for his Chicago band called Creole Jazz Band. Louis Armstrong joined millions of African Americans during the Great Migration from the South and compromised leaving their family and the conflicts of Jim Crow laws and lynchings to find better jobs in Chicago. Chicago's black population increased from 44,000 in 1910 to 109,000 in 1920. Armstrong fulfilled his boyhood dream of joining his mentor's band, where they played in Lincoln Gardens Cafe, a few blocks from the Stroll, Bronzeville's Black Bright Lights district along South State Street and 35th. His solos and duets with Oliver soon drew big crowds to the Lincoln Gardens.
Before he actually began playing, music was just, in so many words, very straight, focused on whatever the melody is and things like that. But when he got on the scene, he brought this individuality to it. So when you can hear a piece played one way on one night, and then it'll be slightly altered the next night. And so he gave people the freedom, or he said that it was okay to be yourself.
Future white jazz musicians like the Yasin High Gang, Eddie Condon, Bud Freeman, and Bix Beiderbecke took trips to the South Side to hear them play and were influenced by their music. During his career in Chicago, Armstrong played at the Dreamland Cafe, the Vendome Theater, the Savoy Ballroom, and the Sunset Cafe, where his reputation grew. His first recording with King Oliver in 1923 also established his recording career and helped spread his fame throughout the country and in Europe. In 1924, he left Chicago, joined Fletcher Henderson's big band in New York City, where his killer high-note solos were featured, and Armstrong experienced the flourishing African-American creative enterprise called the Harlem Renaissance, according to Mark H. Miller. Jazz musician Wynton Marsalis said, "Louis Armstrong invented a new style of playing. He created the coherent solo, fused the sound of the blues with American popular song, and extended the range of the trumpet." But 14 months later, Armstrong went back to Chicago, and even radio broadcasted his performances from the Savoy Ballroom. This helped show his musical genius in the airwaves and brought jazz into homes throughout America. According to Mark Miller, as a popular black performer whose appeal crossed racial lines, Armstrong greatly expanded opportunities for black performers. During the 1930s, he became the first African-American jazz musician to write an autobiography, get featured in a major Hollywood movie, and be the host of a nationally sponsored radio show. This helped educate the white mainstream audience about black culture and music. Armstrong's style of singing and how he improvised melodies of songs replaced with nonsense syllables known as scatting also completely changed how singers who came after him started singing popular songs. He paved the way for jazz singing and influenced pop singers like Bing Crosby, Billie Holiday, Frank Sinatra, and Ella Fitzgerald. Armstrong became the first African-American pop star, and he changed American music by bringing African-American elements front and center for the first time. This was very important during the time of Jim Crow laws because many whites saw Armstrong with his handkerchief, popping eyes, his big smile, and friendly appearance as someone not threatening. He also made a lot of jokes and made people laugh whenever he played in front of an audience. While this may seem not that bad at first, Armstrong was seen as confirming the main stereotype created by minstrel shows, an American form of entertainment developed in the early 19th century, where white people in makeup or blackface played and mocked black people as uneducated, silly, and dim-witted. This compromise made many of Lewis's black fans begin to call him a sellout.
It's very easy for us to call him a sellout. It's very easy for us to call him an Uncle Tom. I remember when I was a kid, I would cringe sometimes when he would come out and go, oh yeah. But the reality is that in order to have the career he did, Louis Armstrong had to figure out how to be political, how to get his music across, how to sort of not alienate many of the record producers that he did. I think that while he was not someone like a Harry Belafonte who kicked down the doors during the civil rights movement, I think his presence helped at the very least make some white Americans comfortable with black culture. And that was a step in helping to change this country.
Younger and more politically conscious jazz musicians like John Dizzy Burks Gillespie, Miles Davis, and other black entertainers called him a plantation character. This is because Armstrong was always silent about the conflicts of his own people's racial struggles and civil rights. That silence changed in 1957 when he spoke out about the integration conflict in Little Rock, where the governor from Arkansas sent in the National Guard to prevent 9 students from entering a high school because they were black. When Armstrong saw this and how the mob of white people were treating the students, he compromised his career and reputation by telling the press how he felt. The way they are treating my people in the South, the government can go to hell. He even canceled a goodwill tour to Russia to prove his point. Black and white public figures then criticized him and asked to boycott and cancel Armstrong's concerts. Those who used to call him a sellout and an Uncle Tom for not speaking up about the segregation and civil rights didn't even defend him. Although Louis Armstrong compromised his career by playing up the Uncle Tom stereotype and not getting involved in politics when it comes to the conflicts of segregation and civil rights, he made a powerful impact in his fight for equality by breaking racial barriers through his music and getting people of different races to appreciate the African American creativity. As Louis Armstrong once said, "While they're listening to music, they don't think about trouble. What's more, they're watching Negro and white musicians play side by side, and we bring contentment and pleasure." I always say, look at the nice taste we leave. It's bound to mean something.
Sweet dreams that leave all worries behind you. But in your dreams, whatever they be, dream a little dreamer.